Welcome into Reiter's Block. I'm Bill Reiter. We got an all-NBA Finals edition for you. My colleague, Reid Forgrave, going to join me from Toronto, Canada. We'll go inside the numbers on the kind of comebacks the Warriors are hoping to begin mounting tonight. And we're going to talk about, you guessed it, KD starting right now. 'To KD or not to KD? That is the question, and it sounds like the answer will be a great big affirmative. While Kevin Durant is officially a game-time decision over the last few hours, a number of reports have trickled in with varying degrees of certainty that Durant will play or is expected to play or is likely to play. So barring some kind of a remarkable change, the two-time Finals MVP, the former league MVP, and one of the great scorers we've ever seen, and one of the great enigmas so far in this postseason, is going to suit up for Golden State and play tonight. Certainly, the official word that we got earlier in the day after a shoot-around from head coach Steve Kerr sounded, as it relates to Kevin Durant playing, pretty optimistic for the Warriors.
He went through full shoot-around, and he went back to get treatment, and so we'll list him as game time decision, but he looked good, and we'll see where it all goes.
Who can argue with the fact that it'll be huge to have Durant back? I was one of the guys, it looks like, that I'm wrong, who thought this Warriors team could get it done without KD, and here we are, the Raptors, with a huge 3-1 series lead and the chance to close out these NBA Finals in Toronto tonight. Now, we've seen with KD how markedly better this team has been just statistically when he's in the finals versus when he's not, when he's in the postseason versus when he's not. Let's just dive into the finals real quick. With Durant, this team is 8-1. Without him, 8 and 9 points per game, go from 119 all the way down to 101, and the point per game differential is a swing of almost 10 points per game. And we know this, and I'm sure Reid Forgrave will hit this in a few minutes. Durant has been nothing short of spectacular in this postseason before going out with that calf injury in the semifinals against the Rockets, almost 31 points per game. I mean, 31, 10, 4, 2 steals, 45% from the field, and 40% from three. Those are ridiculous numbers. And there's all kinds of different ways to parse how ready he's going to be, what his fitness is going to be. Will he be able to move laterally? How is he going to look in terms of his sharpness? But we know, everyone knows, Kyle Lowry on the other side of the equation knows that Kevin Durant is obviously a remarkably important weapon when you can employ him in your quest to try and win a basketball game.
He's an MVP. He's an all-NBA player. He's an all-star, Finals MVP. He's really, really talented, really, really good. But we can't focus on that. We have to focus on ourselves. And that's one thing we've done all playoffs is kind of focus on ourselves and go out there and play.
And to be fair to Kyle Lowry, focusing a little bit on this Raptors team, as good as Durant is, and he is awesome, Kawhi Leonard, who's actually played, has been nothing short of unstoppable. And we're not going to take anything away from the Raptors, but the injuries have piled up, and Kawhi and co have taken advantage of that. You've got Klay Thompson missing that game. You've got Kevon Looney, who missed some time, we thought wasn't going to return at all. You've got Iguodala banged up. DeMarcus Cousins coming back from that injury. And KD playing tonight. The cavalry, it feels like, is on its way. I will say this. Obviously, you're going to play Kevin Durant. There's no scenario if he's cleared and he feels like he can go that he's not going to go. I'm not making the case and the argument he shouldn't be out there. I just will say this about my years reporting on the NBA and having seen this play out when sources, GMs, executives have called it. When there is a chemistry issue in a locker room, when there's a player who epitomizes a certain sullenness in combination with his excellence, when there are doubts about the commitment or the togetherness of a team because of a star, and we saw some of that the last 2 or 3 days, reports that some of these Warriors were perplexed and there was some angst about why Kevin Durant wasn't playing, certainly reflects what we've seen over the course of this season when I've heard from people around the NBA that they love Kevin Durant, the player. They obviously respect the hell out of him when he's on the floor, but there's not the same kind of cohesiveness that we've seen in the past. Those things can weigh on you. You need Durant, but you need him not just healthy, you need him to be in a good place with his teammates. It is a different thing playing a basketball game in an elimination game, down 3-1 on the road. They need the cavalry, but they also need Kevin Durant and Draymond Green and the rest of these guys to be together. And interestingly, that's probably going to hinge on where Kevin Durant's at in terms of the future. As much as he says he hasn't really thought about his impending free agency, that player option where he's almost certain, if he's not hurt, to make himself an unrestricted free agent, we're looking at an opportunity for Kevin Durant's future in Golden State or elsewhere to be shaped in the years ahead. There are reports out there, not from the most reliable of places, but reports out there over the last few days that if the Warriors were to win this series without KD, he would leave. If they would lose it, he would stay. If that's true, it sure feels like the perfect situation for Kevin Durant. Come back and play the hero and you can stick around or go, you're the good guy. Or if they lose, if this Warriors team can't come back, it's not his fault because he wasn't around. There's also a lot that's on the line just emotionally for a player when you're battling that place between are you ready to go and your teammates' expectations regardless of how you feel. And Andre Iguodala said something about this I think is interesting, and the quote I think speaks to the gray areas with a guy like KD and what he's about. Iguodala said, as you can see there, I've been there as well. Somebody asking if you're going to play every day. That wavers on your spirit, but nobody cares about that. All they care about is the bottom line. That's all we all care about. That can waver on your spirit. And it goes on, and the gist of it, as you can see there, Andre Iguodala understands that it's a different kind of pressure when you're not playing versus when you are. How this Warriors team responds tonight will be incredibly impactful in terms of Kevin Durant's future down the line as a member of Golden State or a New York Knick or a Clipper or somewhere else. And let me also just close with this, because it's only happened once, but I was there for it, and so was this Warriors team on the wrong side of the equation. We saw in 2016 the Warriors, with home court advantage, get up 3-1, and everybody wrote that series off. LeBron and the Cavs were going to lose again, and what happened? They steal a game on the road. Fair to say there was no Draymond Green, which was an impact. Having Kevin Durant back, that's an impact for the away team this time around, and we know what happened. We know the rest. The Cavs able to turn that thing around, win that series, force a Game 7, and all the pressure shifted to the Golden State team that we'd already anointed champions, and they didn't get it done. You take it one game at a time. The Raptors are almost certainly going to win this series. Right now, Golden State 4-1. I'm so tempted to bet the 4-1. I don't think I have the guts to do it. But if Kevin Durant is 100%, and he can give 25 to 30 minutes or more, this series could still have a lot of basketball left in it. So much depends on Kevin Durant, the player, his health, his conditioning, where he's at with his teammates. It is going to be something to behold, and that's before we get into Kawhi Leonard and how incredible he and this Raptors team has been. Cannot wait. Just a few hours away. And, of course, we'll keep you updated every step of the way here on CBS Sports HQ. And I'll be on after the game to either talk about the series extending or the fact that Toronto Raptors are NBA champions. Either way, it's going to be something to see. Reid Forgrave right now is live in Toronto. He's on the floor, and we're going to visit with him in just a moment from the arena, talking some NBA Finals with my colleague at CBS Sports HQ. When we come back to CBS Sports HQ and Writer's Block here in just a minute. All right, welcome back into the program. It is Writer's Block here on CBS Sports HQ, a special All-NBA Finals edition. And talking NBA Finals, we got to go to the side of the NBA Finals tonight. We're talking to Reid Forgrave. He is in beautiful Toronto, Canada. He is the Nostradamus of this network, the one guy who called the Raptors in the preseason to be in this position. Greetings, Mr. Forgrave.
Mr. Reiter, how are you? Toronto, lovely city. These crazy Canadians have been lining up since Friday to get into Jurassic Park, lining up in the rain to watch a game on a television outside. I'm not sure if I've seen anything quite like it. Closest analogy I could come up with is, and you remember this distinctly, Chicago Cubs, 2016, the way that a city completely came out for a team.
I was there. Maybe one of the differences being we knew what the Indians were and who they were going to throw out there. It sounds like, as the reports trickle in, that Kevin Durant is almost certainly going to play tonight. That's certainly the expectation. There will be one guy in the building those Raptors fans would rather see on the bench or elsewhere. Now, Reid, I know we haven't seen KD in many weeks. We don't know the condition he's going to be in. Best guess, what you're hearing, how significant do you think he can be in terms of impacting the game in the series starting tonight?
Steve Kerr spoke about this after today's shoot-around, and he said his biggest concern with KD isn't so much the calf, it's the conditioning. This has been really the definition of a day-to-day injury. What Kerr told us today was that when he first spoke with the team's trainer right after this injury, the trainer just underscored how uncertain this type of injury is. He said it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months. So as much as we see like games being played by coaches saying a guy is available, unavailable, day-to-day, questionable, doubtful, I don't think that's been the case with Kevin. I honestly think that they've just been very uncertain about him. But he did practice today. He was the first Warrior out of practice to go and get treatment. But as Steve Kerr said, look, when you have a chance at having Kevin Durant out there, even if he's not anywhere near 100%, you take that chance. And I don't know if that means Kevin Durant goes sit in the corner, shoot threes. I don't know if that means the Kevin Durant who was the MVP of these playoffs until he got hurt in Game 5 against the Rockets. But some version of KD has to be a blessing for this Golden State Warriors team.
Reid, one of the things that I think is really interesting about what you and I do for a living is there's sometimes a disconnect between what it feels like or sounds like or what's going on when, like you're reporting on a series or a team day to day, and like me right now when you're sitting, or fans at home, sitting in the studio, sitting in your house watching from a distance. From a distance, Steve Kerr looks really surly in a way that I certainly haven't seen in the years that I covered this Warriors team. Am I missing something, or do you feel like being around him, the stress of being down 3-1, the injuries are starting to get to the Warriors head coach?
Yeah, he's been a little bit short with media. Usually he's one of the most, if not the most, media-friendly coach in the entire NBA. But you get the sense that his patience is wearing thin, and I don't think it's any specific player. I don't get the sense that he's mad at Kevin Durant for being injured or for not coming back when some people thought he should have come back. I think it's just the wear and tear of 5 years playing 100 games a year, and then to have this moment, which really is kind of... This feels like some sort of ending for the Warriors, whether they win this or whether they don't. Kevin Durant, we all assume, is gone. And then at the end of this year, going into next year, it's going to be a very different team. This might be the end of a dynasty. So I think Steve Kerr is feeling the pressure from that. And frankly, he's feeling I guess you'd call it being annoyed by every single day for the past 4 or 5 weeks being asked, how's Kevin? How's that calf doing? When's he going to be back out there? And not being able to give, honestly, a straight answer.
I'm sure it's easier to answer these questions when you're on the brink of winning championship after championship. Reid, I want to ask you about a column that you wrote. I thought it was interesting. It was really good over the weekend, CBSSports.com. And this idea, and the Warriors have been felled by injury. You got the Klay Thompson injury. That's significant. Kevin Durant obviously hasn't played in this series. Andre Iguodala's been beat up. Kevon Looney. I mean, the list goes on. DeMarcus Cousins, and not really in the condition you'd like for an NBA Finals. And we forget that back in 2016, when the Warriors blew that lead to the Cavs, a lot of people, and put me in that group, said, hey, Draymond Green missed one game and it turned the series, and yet it is what the scoreboard says it is. Where do you come down on this notion if Toronto wins the series, which it looks like they're going to do, whether there's an asterisk or there's not next to that accomplishment?
People are going to put an asterisk there, and it's going to be completely unfair. I mean, might I remind you, not even just that Draymond play back in Game 4 of the 2016 series, but the year before, the year that started this Warriors run, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love both injured for the majority of that finals. We don't talk about the beginning of this Warriors dynasty as a dynasty that started with an asterisk, and I don't think we should talk about this Raptors, whatever it is, whether it's a one-off and Kawhi leaves in the offseason, or whether this is the beginning of the next era of the NBA, where Kawhi and his Raptors are atop the NBA for the next 2, 3, 4 years. I hope we don't put an asterisk next to it, because this team, one, they've been built the right way. They haven't been built on the backs of tanking. They don't have a single lottery pick on their roster. And two, and I think this is the more important point, I'm not so sure that this team wouldn't have given a big-time fight, maybe even beaten a 100% full-strength Warriors team. This Raptors team, they play basketball the right way. They're so even-keeled. Defense first. This defense has been historically good against this amazing, or at least until this series, amazing Warriors offense. So I think it's a shame for fans that we didn't get to see these two teams at full strength, because I honestly believe the Raptors would have given them their entire money's worth and might have even won the series.
Yeah, I love that take. And I know this isn't the focus of a lot of the talk in the sports world, a lot of other places, not here at CBS Sports HQ. People are too busy yelling at each other to actually pay attention to what's being said and what should be discussed. But the reality is the Warriors have always played incredible defense on their defensive runs. They have had two utterly atrocious defensive outings, but they lost both those games in this series, and the last defensive outing wasn't exactly the stuff of championships. Where do you come down on the Warriors' defense, Reid? What it can be, what it needs to be, and what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up defense because so many people, they look at Kevin Durant coming back and you're like, boy, they need to score. They only scored 92 points in Game 4. You know what? In their playoff run of the past 5 years, that's more than 100 playoff games, they've scored 92 points or fewer only 6 times. Clearly, they need more offense, but this series is all about a defensive breakdown by the Warriors from beginning to end. Their defensive rating during these playoffs is 115. To put that in perspective, 115 over the past 4 games. Obviously, that's a small sample size, but you know where that would rank them during regular season in the NBA? 29th between the Phoenix Suns and the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's how bad this defense has been. It's been a matter of injuries, of course. It's also been a matter of effort. It's been a matter of Draymond Green not quite setting the tone from the top. We saw him take responsibility for Game 1, and he really locked down in Game 2, but then this defense has once again fallen apart in Games 3 and 4. If they're going to win tonight, and if they're going to pull off the miracle of coming back from 3-1, it's going to have to be on the backs of a defense that needs to get back in transition and then needs to figure out a way to slow down a guy in Kawhi Leonard who, talk about an assassin. This guy rises up to the biggest of moments every single time.
Reid, I talked to Chris Hassel about this earlier on the network about Kawhi Leonard, and if the Raptors win tonight or in the next few days and win this championship, he'll have more championships by age 28 than LeBron did, than Jordan did, than Shaq did. The list goes on and on and on. I know we can be captives of the moment. I can be guilty of that. But Kawhi Leonard was the second youngest Finals MVP ever with the Spurs. He has obviously been an infusion of greatness and championship excellence for this Raptors team. If Toronto gets one more win and they're NBA champions, how do we start considering Kawhi in the game today and in the game potentially all time?
I think it's pretty simple in the game today over the course of these playoffs, which frankly is the first time that he's been going all out in the past 2 years. Last year, that lost season with the Spurs, and this year, played 60 games during the regular season. It was all about ramping up toward the playoffs. But the Kawhi Leonard we've seen the past 2 months, he's the best two-way player on earth. And guess what? Basketball's a two-way game. Therefore, Kawhi Leonard has been, over the past 2 months, the best basketball player on earth. With apologies to LeBron James, with apologies to Kevin Durant, who was amazing before he got injured, with apologies to the presumptive MVP, Giannis, Kawhi has been absolutely unstoppable. And he does it in such a quiet way, not just personally quiet, but his style of game, it's not about me. And I know that's a cliche, but Kawhi Leonard, I do feel, when we talk about egos in this game, we talk about guys who get infected by that disease of themselves, Kawhi doesn't get affected by that. He is really the ultimate team player, and I think the fact that he is sort of this dry, off-court personality colors how we view him, and it's unfair because he's really everything that you want in a basketball player. He doesn't get in trouble. He plays both sides of the ball. He only wants to win. He's really the perfect player for today's NBA.
All right, Reid Forgrave, for you and your vibrant pink and blue pop and tie, which looks dynamic, by the way, it is the dreaded prediction question. This series has befuddled me at every step of the way. Who do you got tonight? Who do you like? Do you think you're moving on to Golden State for another game, or are the Raptors celebrating a championship tonight?
I think we're seeing a championship in this building tonight. Look, the Kevin Durant question has been the question that has shadowed this entire series. We don't know who's going to be the Kevin Durant that comes out tonight. For all we know, he could be a guy who comes out and scores 40-plus points over the next 3 games, is the first Finals MVP to only play in 3 games of an NBA Finals. It just feels so unlikely, having not played in more than a month. And looking at this Raptors team, how disciplined they are, how even-keeled they are, how they are a defense-first team, this feels like, I hate to use this word, but it almost feels like their destiny. There's this feeling in this city and around this, in this building, frankly, around this entire country, that this is their time. And you get the sense that the Raptors haven't let that affect them, certainly not in a negative way. I'm a guy who was, as you mentioned earlier, I was on the Raptors in the preseason. I picked them to win the East in the playoffs, but I never imagined that they could upset the Warriors. And yet, because of the circumstances around this series, there's the asterisk, but also because of the way that this team is just one of the most well-knitted together NBA teams that we've seen in recent times, I think this series is theirs, and they're going to win it in 5.
All right, Reid, enjoy the game. Enjoy whatever light show is going on behind you right now. Thank you for the insight, brother. We'll do it again soon. Reid Forgrave on the program. All right, we're doing all NBA Finals on the show today. We're going to go inside the numbers on the kind of comebacks that this Warriors team is trying to spring, trying to get going tonight. We'll see whether or not it happens. And Bill's big bet of the day, man, I got to stop betting on the Warriors. We'll find out if I learned my lesson when we come back to the program. It's Writer's Block here on CBS Sports HQ. All right, welcome back into Writer's Block here on CBS Sports HQ, a special NBA Finals edition of the show. We've only seen a handful of comebacks in the NBA in best-of-7 series when teams have been down 3-1. The Warriors will have to mount that, or the Raptors will be NBA champions. We're going to go inside the numbers on what that likelihood of a comeback looks like. And we start with the number 11 and the number 1. Only 11 teams in NBA playoff history have successfully mounted that comeback from a 3-1 deficit, but only once in the NBA Finals. The Warriors are one of those teams, coming back against the Kevin Durant-led Thunder in the 2016 Western Conference Finals. As we mentioned earlier in the show, the one comeback in the Finals was Cleveland in 2016 against that Warriors team. Next up is 19.3. In their 3 losses in that series, the Warriors were outscored by the Thunder by an average of 19.3 points per game, including 2 losses of 24 points or more, meaning getting your butt whooped doesn't matter if you can mount some comebacks and win some close games. How about negative 21.7? Golden State's big 3 that series also struggled in those losses. Steph, Clay, and Draymond had a combined plus-minus of negative 65.1. In their 3 straight wins that followed, their plus-minus was 25.2. Those are obviously giant swings. And finally, 119.9. If the Warriors want to come back this series, the defense needs to dramatically improve. We talked a lot about that here on the show. So far this series, in their losses, they have a defensive rating of almost 120, 119.9. That's 10 points higher than their season average of 109. And to put it in perspective, it's 3 points per 100 possessions worse than the Cleveland Cavaliers in the regular season, who are the worst defense by far in the NBA this year. So this Warriors team is playing G League level defense in those losses. All right, before we sign off, here come the boos. Bill's big, mediocre, so-sized bet of the day. Yeah, I got to stop betting on Golden State. The only bets I've won, obviously, in this series have been on the Raptors. But you know what? I'm going to do what I do sometimes in Vegas on a Saturday night that becomes a Sunday morning. I'm going to throw good money after bad because it makes me feel alive. And I think the Warriors are going to win. Durant's back. It's such a hard thing to try and handicap. A lot of times I might just skip this game, but I'm not going to not bet potentially the last NBA game of the year. I'm getting points. Warriors plus 1.5 with all the reluctance that I can muster. It just feels like this team is not going to go quietly this early into the end of their season and that Raptors championship. So give me the Warriors. Probably should fade me. That's what I would do if I was you. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk about whatever happens tonight on the program. I'll be on the post-game show after this Game 5 of the NBA Finals. We'll see you then. I'm Bill Reiter. This is Writer's Block, and so thanks so much for being here.